Yep. Good morning, everyone. So last session we finished learning about TypeScript. So few more TypeScript related concepts you will come across while learning with Angular. Okay. From today, we will start understanding and working with the Angular. So few basic points already in the beginning I explained. What is Angular? Angular is a developers platform. Angular is a developers platform. What is meant by developers platform actually? So developers platform provides end-to-end solution for developer, that is from building to deploying whatever are required. It provides everything. That means building, debugging, right, testing and deploying. All tools are provided. Deploying, all tools are provided. Building is designing, debugging is finding the issues and fixing them, and testing is verifying whether our design and functionality is matching the requirements of client. Deploying is making it live so that we can start using it and working with it, right? Yeah, that is. So technically, so developers platform provides complete end-to-end solution. So here, one important point you need to know is Angular is technically Angular is technically a framework, right? It is a framework and developers platform. Technically, Angular is a framework. So framework, but it is more than framework. That is the reason we call it as a developers platform. So Angular is a framework developed by Google and maintained by a large community of developers and organizations. So Angular originally developed by Google, and it is maintained by a large community of organizations and developers, not only Google, because it is open source. So any open source, you know that it is contributed with lot of community of developers and organizations. So Angular is being maintained by a large community of organizations and various community of developers. So technically it is a framework. Framework means, what is a framework? What is the concept of framework? Actually, a frameworks allows to build the application. It allows to build the application and control the application flow. Technically, what is difference between a library and framework? I told you in the demo, right? What is difference between a library and framework? Library can just build the application, but framework can build the application and control the application flow. Actually, it internally uses lot of other frameworks. So Angular uses various frameworks implicitly. It uses various frameworks, like it uses frameworks like MVC, it uses framework like MVVM. So internally, it uses various frameworks. Angular itself is a framework and it is supported internally by various frameworks. What is MVC? What is the advantage of having MVC? We will learn when we start practically working with Angular. We will see that. So Angular, if anybody says is a framework, that is right. If anybody says that it is a developer's platform, it is more better than a framework. That means because Angular community itself tells that we are a developer's platform. So that means we are more than a framework. Now the question is, if you are learning a language, what is the concept that I have to learn in a language? As a developer, what we have to learn in any language? In any programming language, what we have to learn? In any programming language, we have to learn about uh, variables, data types, operators, statements, functions, or methods. If it is OOP language, then interfaces, classes, abstract classes, all these things comes under language. Then in a framework, what we have to learn? Generally, what is present in a framework to learn? Because Angular uses framework, Angular uses the language TypeScript. So in a framework, usually what a developer have to know. Have you learned any frameworks in any technology? Suppose Java frameworks, .NET frameworks, PHP frameworks, Python frameworks. Any frameworks you learned in any technology? If you have learned, what are the concepts in a framework to learn? What should I learn? Because framework is using TypeScript. Already you know TypeScript. Then what is there in a framework to learn? What else we have to learn in a framework? So technically, uh, every framework, that means you can say Angular framework. Angular framework comprises of various concepts. So it contains various things. Means every framework contains a lot of concepts. Like what are the concepts in a framework? Huh. Actually, every framework have so many things. Like what is it? Django in Python. Yeah, Django is a framework, right? Django is a framework, microservices. So MVC, MVVM, all these are frameworks. But here the concept is in a framework, what are the concepts? What topics you have to know as a developer? Actually, framework means usually framework contains a lot of things like factories, services, components, components. So we have modules, modules, and you saw here extra in this namespace. Am I right? Namespace. Generally, in a framework, you have to know about all these things. We have like pipes in Angular, especially we have like pipes, and we have to know about some techniques. So the techniques, like we call them as routing. So we call them as state management. So we call this as model binding. So we have data binding. We have now event binding. So we have like class binding. So you have like templates. So many, even you have style binding, which we will discuss. So technically framework includes so many techniques and so many concepts. Almost in all technologies it will be similar, except concepts like pipes, namespaces. Rest of majority of options will be similar. Even when you go to learn any language like any library like React, there also you will find majority of such things. So Vue, Backbone, and all type of frameworks you are learning, usually they contains all these concepts. So as a developer, learning framework is all about learning these things. That means we already know language. So with that language, we need to learn how to handle this. Just overview I will give, because detailedly we are going to discuss them one by one. Factories means functions and values. Already I told you one point. It is a collection of functions and values. So factory is a collection of function and values. So factories set of functions and values. Service is nothing but it is a set of factories. Set of factories. A set of factories are kept in a service. And component is nothing but usually components we call them as building blocks for application. Components are building blocks for application. So usually a component provides predefined design, functionality, and styles. We will see detail. We will see just one point I am explaining. And module, you know already. Module is a set of classes, right? So it is a set of classes, contracts, so templates. So all these are modules. And the namespace is a set of modules, so and other things. Pipes are used for transformation. We use pipes for transformation means formatting, filtering, sorting, all such activities we do by using pipes. And framework contains a lot of techniques like routing, state management, model binding, data binding, event binding, class binding, style binding. These are used for various interactions. So that means these are all techniques. Every technique is individual. Just point, routing is a technique used for designing navigation. In application, navigation is designed by using routing. State management is used for storing the data and making the data available across requests. Model binding is used for mapping the data to the UI, user interface. Data binding is used for handling interaction with the clients. That means accessing data from the client, storing in any data store, again accessing data from store, displaying to the user. That is data binding. Event binding, you know already, JavaScript events. That means what actions to perform, on click, on change, on blur, such options are event binding. Class binding, style binding related to dynamically applying CSS styles, effects. So templates are nothing but predefined component designs which you can implement and use with customizations. So usually Angular framework contains so many things. These are major, minor, small topics. So many are present inside routing. Again, so many inside state management, model binding, so many other concepts you will learn. So technically, learning a framework is all about these concepts. So we have to learn all these things in a framework. In addition to this, so many others will be there. These are some major concepts. So learning Angular is all about knowing about all these things, right? And Angular, already we know that Angular 2 started Angular 2 version, right? Angular 2 version started in early 2013, and latest Angular version is 20, that is Angular 14. Angular 14 is the latest, and officially up to Angular 12, right? So up to Angular 12. So they are LTS, long-term support. So almost, so up to Angular 11, Angular 11 no longer supported. That means official no longer supported. So that means LTS end, long-term support end. So that means no longer officially supported by community. Currently, long-term support is there for 12 and 13 versions, and 14 is the latest. And up to Angular 11, community no longer supports. They are not under support officially. So that is the reason if you or your company still using any older versions of Angular, then you are on your own. That means it's not like you should not use, you can use, but you are on your own. That means if any issues comes, then you will not find a solution immediately. You cannot get, your developers have to solve by themselves. And the community will not support Angular 11 anymore, Angular 8, 7, 11 anymore. But sometimes companies still ask Angular 8, 7, 11 like versions because their projects are already built on it. They still continue on that. It's not mandatory that everybody have to upgrade to the latest versions. So Angular 14 latest with minor releases changes are there. By the time we finish Angular, we may get one more version, right? So by the time we finish Angular, we will get one more version. Almost guarantee that we will get, because every year Angular releases at least 3-4 versions. And we can expect that one more version will be released with few changes. So if any new version comes, we will discuss what's new in that version, right? But now, if you can handle Angular 14, all versions are similar, only few changes you have to know, which I will tell you at the end, right? At the end, we will discuss about what changes are there in a older version. We will not discuss changes in outdated versions, which are not supported. Which are in long-term support, we will see what changes between previous and current, right? And I will give you one reference where you can find difference between all the versions, and you can go through them once you are good with your Angular, right? And now important, technically, to work with Angular, how to set up the environment, how do we work with the environment, we will see. So first important is here, set up environment for Angular. Set up environment for Angular. To set up environment for Angular, to start working with Angular, already few things you've done. So that is install Node.js, already you have, and you have to install TypeScript. You have done this also. So, and you have install VS Code, Visual Studio Code. You have that editor. Now, additionally, what you have to do is you have to install Angular CLI. Angular CLI. This is the extra thing you have to do. Angular CLI is nothing but, so this is npm, that means from the command prompt anywhere in your computer. So npm install globally @angular/CLI, Angular CLI. So here, actually, Angular CLI, Angular CLI is a command line tool provided by Angular to manage, to create and manage your Angular projects. So to create Angular project, to manage your Angular project, a command line tool is provided. Command line tool means from this tool, you have to run some commands and those commands will do the work, like creating project, adding libraries, creating whatever required for the framework, setting up environment, deploying, testing, everything we can do by using these CLI commands, right? For that, we need to install Angular CLI globally on your PC. So open the command prompt. So in the command prompt, you have to use npm install globally Angular CLI. You have to just run this command. Already I have Angular CLI installed. So in my PC, if you haven't installed, you have to check that once you have to do it, right? So already I have that. Once it is installed, you can check. So ng version. ng version is to verify the Angular version, which version is installed on your PC, right? ng, some change in the version. Some version. Some command changes just means you can check the Angular version just by using ng version. ng version is used to get the Angular version. You can see the current Angular version. I'm just using this ng version, and the current Angular CLI version is 14.0.2. That is the Angular current version. And the Node.js 16 package manager 8. Already I told you that we need latest Node and npm versions to work with, right? And this is the basic Angular version which is already available on my PC, right? Make sure that you have installed this. If you have any older version of Angular, many times people ask like how to update from old version to another. Update is the word, upgrade, update is the word used for the projects designed in older version to new. It is not for software, right? It is not for software. That means generally you don't upgrade or update the Angular. You have to uninstall and install. Upgrade from older version to new version is related to project. Software you don't upgrade. Software you have to reinstall every time. Whenever a new version comes, you have to reinstall. You don't upgrade. So you never upgrade any software, right? We upgrade only apps, applications we upgrade, right? We don't upgrade the software, right? That means you have to install software, and a new version of software came means you have to uninstall and install here. So that means if already you are using an older version, that means here a simple note, if you have any older version of Angular, if you have any older version of Angular on your PC, then what you have to do? First, you have to run npm uninstall. npm uninstall globally @Angular CLI. @Angular CLI. You have to uninstall Angular CLI. You have to uninstall Angular CLI. It will completely uninstall Angular CLI. After that, what you have to do is npm cache clear. You have to use cache clear. Cache verify. Okay, cache verify. Clear is not required. Verify will do the clear also. npm cache verify. Cache verify will, what it will do is it will clean up all the temporary files also. Because sometimes after you install, if any temporary files left related to older version, when you install again, then few libraries are not updated. They will be installed according to the previous version library available in the memory. So you need to clean up all the memory, including the basic temporary files which are available for the older version, right? Clean up everything. Then after that, you have to install new version. That means npm install globally @angular CL. That's what we have to do. And you can check ng version. That is the previous. So if you already have any Angular older version on your PC, then you have to first uninstall that, then cache verify. Cache verify will clean up everything. After that, now you have to install Angular CLI again, right? So this is Angular installation. Our environment is same. That means Visual Studio Code, Node environment, everything will be same. Only extra you have to install Angular. Okay. Now once you installed Angular, now the next step, so create Angular workspace. You have to create Angular workspace. Now our environment will be little different. So that is the reason you completely follow what we are doing in class, not half YouTube, half my class. It will not match, right? So either you follow YouTube or you follow my class. That's because we are working in a different environment than what YouTube channels show you or what general websites show you about Angular. That means generally in Angular, any tutorials and websites, when they teach about Angular, they will tell about how to create a project on Angular, working with the project. But we are not working on project. We are working with workspace. Workspace is a set of projects. That means a workspace contains set of projects. Then here commands will be little different. So you are working in a larger area than project. That means in a workspace, you can maintain multiple projects and you can share your library between projects. So we can collaborate multiple projects and use them also. So that is the reason. So commands, little bit variation will be there while working individually with project, while working with workspace, right? So now we are working with Angular workspace. Actually, workspace is nothing but create a workspace. That means Angular workspace. Angular workspace is a set of or you can say Angular workspace will host a set of projects, or you can say Angular apps, a set of Angular apps. That means actually it provides a common library for multiple projects. It provides a common library for multiple projects. So we are going to work with workspace. How do we create a workspace and how do we configure the workspace? Let's see. For that, what you have to do is first step, open your PC location in command prompt. Open your PC location in command prompt. So the location in command prompt, so where you want to create your project. So that means where you want to create where you want to create workspace. Okay, where you want to create workspace, open the PC location in command prompt. That means suppose I am going to choose some E drive or D drive, some location here, D drive or E drive, like this I am sure choosing. So what here we have to do is, in this D drive, open this D drive in command prompt cmd. In command prompt, open that D drive location, and here you have to create a project. So you have to run the command ng. So ng is having an option called new. Ng new, this new is used for creating so many things. That means you can create, see, you can get information by using help. Okay, by using help you can get the information about that. That means you can see hyphen help, that is, this is help. That means ng new is a command. This creates a new workspace, as I told you. But actually many times people directly create a project using this. That means they don't create a workspace, they create a project directly with this. So we are going to create a workspace. Actually, for creating project and workspace, a slight change will be there. That means here I will show you so many commands are there. You can see this create application. So create application is an option, and create application is you can see create application is a boolean type. Boolean means it is true or false. By default it is true. That means what happens is, when you run the command, actually what happens here is, when you run the command, generally ng new, and you give some name. By this name a application is created, but we want to create a workspace. Then what we do is, we give workspace name. I will give the name as Angular workspace. Don't use any special characters, use a hyphen. So if you want to separate, or simply give a continuous name, right? So give a simple continuous short name, or use hyphens if you want separations. Don't use any other special characters. And space, you have to use create application. Create application is equal to false. That means you are not creating an application. First you are creating a workspace. You are creating a workspace. In that workspace you can create application. You can create application. You can create application later. You can maintain any number of applications in it. So first we are working in this type of environment, right? So create application we set to false. So and hit enter, and it is creating Angular workspace for you. So remember all these commands, installing related commands, you need to get connected with internet every time, compulsory, because all these libraries are downloaded from their official online repositories. So you need to be connected with internet to get all this, to install Angular CLI, or to create application, whatever library is required, everything you need to do. It will take a while for creating all these things because it needs a large library. So I will give you the command here. So what we have to do, so after this, run the following command. So the command is just, I'm using the command. So ng new, here Angular workspace, and create application. Create application is equal to false. That's how we define. So we are creating a new workspace, and we are not creating application. First we will see what is present in workspace. then we will create one application. Workspace is setting up environment to manage your projects, right? All your projects you can manage in the workspace, right? So this is ready. We can see it is still working on it because lot of libraries are required. We have to wait for a while. Another point is, at the end, once you finish Angular, there I will show you, after we finish Angular, at the end I will show you how to create an application by ourselves from scratch. That means this is by using commands. What this process is called as, when you use a command, it is automatically going to generate everything whatever you need. Actually, this concept is called as technically what this process is called as, right? So this process is called as here, we call this concept as scaffolding. Scaffolding, we call this mechanism as scaffolding. Scaffolding is a concept actually introduced by a technology called Ruby on Rails. Ruby on Rails. Ruby is the technology which introduced the concept of scaffolding, and it is now used in almost all technologies. Scaffolding is nothing but a developer can ask what he wants and the software will generate everything for him. That means you say, I want a class. Then what it will do? It will automatically create a class with a name, and in that it will put a constructor, right? Constructor, and it will keep all the environment ready so that you can start directly using. That means automatically it is generating some code snippets, it is generating some library importing, and it is configuring everything for you. This mechanism is called as scaffolding. Actually, they introduced that scaffolding is two ways. Actually, we have client side scaffolding, server side scaffolding. Server side scaffolding. Actually, scaffolding was introduced for handling CRUD operations. CRUD operations like create, read, update, delete. So, but now it is being used everywhere, not only just CRUD operations. That means earlier, as a developer, I have database and I have application. My application have to communicate with database. For that, I need to write some business logic. Without writing single line of code, they introduced a technique where you just choose a wizard will open. Wizard means step by step guidance. In that wizard, you select which database you want to connect. So in that, you select what operations you want to do on the database. Then click on finish. Everything will be generated, including UI, user interface. That means user interface, business logic, and connection with that, everything is generated. This mechanism is scaffolding. Many technologies use this scaffolding, and the way of generating everything, whatever you need, this is actually scaffolding. So it is ready now. It is doing all the scaffolding work. Now, once it is ready, now we will see what is the environment ready for us, what it contains. Workspace, that means let's see. So Angular workspace, Angular workspace generates following file system. Angular workspace generates following file system automatically for you. We will see what is that file system. So what you have to do is following file system, so which you can open in VS Code, Visual Studio Code. So that means in Visual Studio Code, you open that folder. What is the folder? D:/. So that is Angular workspace. Angular workspace. By this name, a folder is created. You open that folder in Visual Studio Code. So let's open Visual Studio Code. And here let's go to File, Open Folder. And here in D drive, we have Angular workspace. And select folder. And you can see it opens the Angular workspace. And by default, in this already so much is generated. And a developer, no need of any introduction to these files. Generally, if you are a regular web developer, some of these are well known to you as a developer. Everybody knows majority of these in the file system. You can see what it generated important in the file system. What are the components in the file system? That means all these files and folders. That means file, folder, and description. The workspace contains so many things, and I hope no need to explain much about package JSON. Already I told you na. Already we created that package JSON in the beginning of creating a TypeScript project. I told you what is the command for this. npm npm init y. npm init y, right? We used npm init for generating package JSON. What it contains? Package JSON, it comprises of metadata. Simple, right? That means project related metadata. What project related metadata means? It will be like, so name, so it will be like version, it will be like license, right? License, and it will be like license, yeah. It will be like dependencies, right? License, dependencies. So all such information is present there. So these all details are defined in package JSON. There will be another file actually. You see package JSON is already there. And there will be package lock JSON. Another file you will find package lock JSON. So package lock JSON. So this package lock JSON, actually, this package lock JSON is nothing but it comprises of dependencies metadata. That means detailed information about every dependency. That means suppose you installed Bootstrap. Which version of Bootstrap? That is mentioned in package JSON. Then in package lock JSON, detailed about that Bootstrap. That means what license it is following, what is the official repository of Bootstrap. Detailed metadata of every dependency you will find in package lock JSON. You can see in the package JSON, this is the information. And remember, this is just up to the current situation. Later, when you add a project, you add some more library, this will be keep on updating. It is changing regularly. And as of now, you can see these are the libraries and their version. Angular animations, Angular compiler, Angular core forms. These are some libraries which are already installed. But when you see Angular animations, core platform versions, you have RxJS, TSLib, so many dependencies are there. Now I go to package lock JSON. That means you will see detail about every package. Every package related detailed information it will get. You saw that Angular have a compiler, but that compiler related more dependencies information you will find in package log.json, right? And no need to explain tsconfig.json. This also we learned, right? tsc init. With that we generated tsconfig.json. tsconfig.json already we know that it configures, so it configures TypeScript, right? TypeScript for Angular app. It configures TypeScript for Angular app. What do you mean by configuring TypeScript for Angular app? Configuring TypeScript for Angular app means which version of JavaScript it should translate, which module system to use, CommonJS, UMD, AMD module systems, and where to save these JavaScript files, what is the output directory. All such information will be in this tsconfig. You can see all that information will be tsconfig. Output directory will be this one. So, and it have a lot of other. Target is 2020, ES 2020. That means JavaScript latest 2020 it will be. So I showed you 2018, 27. Yes, right. It is not finished. Some more, when you add a project, some more details will be updated into these files, right? Yeah. So another one is readme. So you have readme.md. It is nothing but it is help documentation, help document for projects. That means for developers, if you want to write some help, right, that use this command to run the project, use this command to install this library, all such help for developers we can give in this document. By default, readme contains, you see, some help, right, how to serve and in which location it will run your project. All such basic documentation is present. You can create your documentations. So this is just help document. Okay. Next, very important, you have angular.json. Angular.json. What is package.json and what is Angular.json? Package.json contains all the dependencies related information. Angular.json, it configures all the projects related information which are in the workspace. That means it is responsible for defining the configuration settings for projects in workspace. Currently, we don't have projects. That is the reason this Angular JSON is limited now. You see Angular JSON limited, nothing is there. Now, once you add a project, then projects related information will come here. That means for every project, what scripts we have to use, from where we have to bring the styles, CSS, what is the location of script styles, what is the location of test framework, which test framework to use for testing. All such information will be updated into this Angular JSON. That means what Angular JSON contains that. So it contains configuration settings for projects in workspace, configuration settings for projects in workspace. So like simple times, so which includes like location of scripts and styles. So here commands for test and debug, you can say build for testing and building, etc. All such information will be here. So projects are not there. Currently, we don't have any projects. So we just have only workspace. That is the reason it have limited things. Another important is git ignore. I hope everybody knows about this who knows about GitHub, right? That means if you are collaborating, so if you are publishing, right? If you are publishing publishing your project on GitHub pages, right? If you are collaborating or publishing your project on GitHub pages, then the files to ignore in commit and push. Actually, in commit and push, we will say commit and push, so are defined here. We have to do that here. If you have any awareness on how we collaborate with GitHub pages, that means making it live, I will show you. That means we will see, we can use Git or we can use any third party clouds like uh, Azure, AWS, or Firebase. So many cloud environments are there. You can use any cloud, or you can directly use free GitHub pages. All you can publish your projects. For that, actually, you need a process to follow. So if you have any project created and you want to make it live, so that so developers across your team can watch and you collaborate and work with that project live, then you can use that through GitHub. And if you are doing with GitHub, some files we don't want to push and commit every time, that we mention in GitHub, git ignore actually. So that is what actually git ignore. This is present everywhere. So I have a Git desktop. If you have any projects on your Git, right, and you are collaborating and working, git ignore options will be there. Actually, this is git. And I hope I don't have any existing projects here. Suppose any projects are there and I need to commit. So, and when I have to commit, some options I have to ignore, those are present here. So you will get that option when you are publishing, right? This is actually used for publishing your application on cloud and making it live. In that case, we need this git ignore action. Next, another option is editor config. Editor config. This editor config is nothing but actually, so it defines rules for editor. It defines rules for editor. Actually, you are using Visual Studio Code, but the same project, another team in another country, so maybe using some Sublime, or they may be using some other editor, WebStorm, Sublime. So many editors are there, they can use different editors. So in a project, so several teams working all over the world, same project but working different editors. There is no mandatory that all have to use same editors, right? Then due to this, lot of inconsistency will come in maintaining of a project, due to every editor have its own rules. Then what we do is, across any editor, all developers have to follow some standard rules. Those we mention here. Editor config is actually officially, this is their official website. Editor config, this is editorconfig.org. This is the official. In this file, actually, in this is editor config file, and in this file we mention all the basic rules which will be suitable for all these editors. These are all the editors. So developer can use various editors, but they have to follow some standard rules, so to avoid inconsistency. In that case, what we do is we define those rules in this editor config file. Editor config, currently it is also limited, later it will be updated automatically when you add a project. So you see, insert final new line is true, indent size is 2, indent style is space, character set is UTF-8. Means what UTF-8 means? UTF-8 means, you might have learned this even in HTML also. Huh? Character set UTF-8 means, thinking about it. UTF-8 means it defines that you are using English as language. Chinese, Japanese, Korean, they have UTF-16 32-bit. Arabic have 32, right? Chinese, Japanese have UTF-16. UTF-8 means English. US English, Indian English, UK English, French English, German English. Every English spellings, types, various things will change. Unicode transformation format, right? As per UTF-8, 8 means 8-bit. 8-bit is the size for English language. If it is a Chinese, Japanese, Korean like language used for building application, right? They use in that case it will be UTF 16-bit. Only languages like Arabic and all, they have 32-bit. They are very huge character sizes there. So that depends. And see here, it says that quote type should be single quote, because you know that quote means I can use single quote, I can use double quote, I can use backtick. One person write double quote, another person write single quote. This is all risky. We can simply put some rules here so that everywhere they will follow the same. If I don't follow that, it will show warning saying that please use single quote. That will be better, not error. It is just warning. You can still continue, but we can set the rules here, right? All that information is defined in editor config. And node modules, no need to explain to anybody who is aware of web development what it contains. So all library files are kept here. That means you download any library related, all files are kept here. That means you install Bootstrap. Where is your Bootstrap CSS? Where is your Bootstrap JS? It is in node modules. You install jQuery. Where is your jQuery JS files? They are in node modules. Anything you install through npm, it will be in a separate folder. What is that? Node modules. Node modules, all library files are kept here. So that means library installed via, or say using npm, node package manager, node modules. So this is node modules, all the library files present here. Now actually this VS Code is a new option. So, and you may not find this in every Angular workspace. Actually this is generated by the Visual Studio Code. It is generated by Visual Studio Code. In that we have task.json. So in that we have launch.json. So these files, extensions.json, actually these are actually used for using inbuilt development servers. Actually Visual Studio Code now latest comes with inbuilt debuggers, inbuilt servers. For example, you need to test your APIs. I hope you know that earlier you have API testing done with the tools like Postman, Postman, Fiddler, Swagger. These are all the tools used for testing our APIs. If you have to test APIs. Now inbuilt Visual Studio have provided so many integrated tools. We can just use them and develop an application and test the application. For Angular, whatever supportive servers and supportive debuggers are required, that is provided by Visual Studio Code. Actually, in some projects you will not get it. That means in some computers, when you create a project, you will not get this file. To get this file, what you have to do is in extensions, you have to install Angular language service extension. When you install Angular language service extension, then that Visual Studio Code VS Code folder will be added. It is not mandatory. In many Angular projects you will not see that, but it is good to have because it will provide a complete help on Angular. So Visual Studio Code usually don't have help on Angular. That means when you are writing any Angular code, it will not show any help. Generally when you are writing CSS, HTML, ready-made help will come. That means it will give you IntelliSense suggestions, right? But Angular it will not get. If you install this, you will get. For with that you will get that extra folder in your that. So if you are not getting that extra folder, make sure that you install this Angular language service. Even you don't have any Angular language service, no issue, that is not a problem, because sometimes in your real world projects they don't allow to add new extensions. You are restricted. In that case, don't worry. So because that is not a mandatory one, right? That is just optional. Actually VS Code contains VS Code, right? This VS Code contains it comprises of Angular language service. Angular language service, that means the help about all Angular that is present inside this configuration is present inside this folder. It is not mandatory for us, right? Now you have workspace ready. Workspace only ready, still project is not there. There is no project. Now we have to create a project. So how do we create a project? Once workspace is ready, create a new project. You have to create a new project. So simple, what you have to do in your D drive, just add this command extra. So in your workspace location, that means first point, open terminal. Already you know terminal. So open terminal for your workspace, and there you can run the command and run the command. What is the command in the workspace? You have to do ng generate application, ng generate application, and any name. For example, I give some shopping, that is the name. You can give any name for the project. So now the project is created. Now when project is created, several new things will add into your workspace and several new files will be generated again. Now project file system is different again. It contains a lot of things. So what you have to do, next step, open the terminal. So open the terminal, and in the terminal you have to run the command. So ng generate, shortcut is G, you can simply write ng generate. I am writing generate application, and application name is some shopping. I am creating a new application, ng generate application shopping. Now first step, it is asking, you can see some questions will come now. First question, it is asking, do you like to add routing in our project? So that means you have to walk through some questions. First question, would you like to add Angular routing? I will say no. Routing is very important for Angular application. So it is used for designing navigation in application. Why I am selecting no? Because I will create manually. We will add manually when required. As of now, we don't. Right? Later, whenever required, we can add it for routing. If you say routing, one file will be extra added. In that, routing is readily configured. But that is very important topic we have to learn. That is the reason we will do it manually. Next, so I will say no. Okay, next. Next, it is asking, which style sheet would you like to use? So already I told you that same CSS have SAS, less CSS. I told you at large scale, we don't use directly CSS. We use SAS or less. They are preprocessors, CSS preprocessors. It is asking which one you want to use, SCSS, SAS, less, or only CSS. So if you are not aware of SCSS, SAS, don't take risk. Just use basic CSS, right? So that means here you select CSS, just CSS. Now the project will be created for you. That means now you can see a folder is generated, projects extra. In that projects folder you will find your shopping. In that shopping again so many folders will be generated, so many files and folders will be generated. Now we need to understand the project infrastructure, how to start project. Now how to start building the project, we will see step by step. That we'll see next session, right? Tomorrow we will do that. In tomorrow session we will see the output of our project, then we will start building it. First you need to understand the basic system. That means where which file is present, why that file is required, all these basic we have to learn. Then we can start designing the application. Tomorrow we'll see that. Okay, up to this you try. Then tomorrow we will see how do we work with the project and its environment. Okay, right.